Because I lived in the keeper's house to Nauset Light at the time. A friend of mine, Miriam Rowell, would go to London every winter, and I would move across the street from my little cottage up at Nauset Light over into her house and house sit for her each winter. The light itself went out, generators out. I remember the New York Times called and did an interview with them as they heard the storm was growing in intensity off the coast. And I could see blue flashes from Nauset Light all the way down through Coast Guard as various electrical units and the telephone poles blew out.
Really an unusual event because it had so many things that occurred at the same time. You had a nor'easter coming up the coast, and it stalled over the Cape, and it actually had an eye, and that's what we saw. Was the sun came out on the day after, and then it clouded over later on in the afternoon. But it was beautiful for photography. Everybody's out taking pictures of everything. But it also occurred at the time of a very, very astronomical high tide.
Certainly there was a storm surge with this storm, which lifted the level of the sea level. The barometer was very low. I don't remember what the exact measurement was here. That literally lifts up the sea surface because it's air pressure that's in balance with everything here. And if the air pressure goes down, then the level of the sea is going to go up just because the centrifugal force of the Earth spinning is going to pop it out. And then the wind, of course, pushes on top of that. So it was the usual trifecta of things. And then the moon makes the astronomical tide higher. So that happened to coincide. And when it does, that's when you have these big issues.
You know, it wasn't the waves, it was the tide, the actual size of the ocean was so huge. And it was washing right to the south of the Coast Guard station there. And you really saw the effects of the ocean washing over everything. So it was awesome. And the only thing that was left was the bathhouse, which at this time was like out in the water somehow. I mean, the perspective totally changed. The parking lot had been buried, shattered, washed away completely. You know, I mean, that's where the water came through. Now, there's a little history there because there was erosion there in previous years, and the National Seashore decided to import all this concrete from the Army base in South Wellfleet and dump it right in front of the Coast Guard station to try to halt the erosion. It was a disastrous decision because not only did it was made it a very unpleasant place to go, so all these rocks there, it really didn't stop the erosion that much, but what it did do was weaken the area to the south, which was then starved of the sand that it usually would get, and that sort of paved the way for that break that happened.
The events basically it was just a matter of by pure luck that I wouldn't say luck, but you know, an opportunity where you had a storm stalling over the Cape during a high astronomical tide with the moon pulling and all that jazz, and once it stalled, that elevated sea was just something else. Just obliterated a lot of the, along the outer coast there.
But as I looked out along Coast Guard Spit, all of these houses, there were 6 or 7 houses that were out there, including Conrad Nobley's famous Butterfly House. It was all wrecked and washed away, and I couldn't.
I was up in the cupola of the Coast Guard station and watched as the outermost house lifted off its foundation and floated. It really wasn't destroyed. It kind of like floated into the marsh south and then appeared to go, at least the main section of the building appeared to go out the inlet, out to sea.
I remember that after I was so excited when I saw what had happened down at the beach, I came back and I actually used the payphone at the Salt Pond Visitor Center in very windy conditions. I remember it was very windy and wet, and called the radio. This is the days before cell phones, and called the radio station and gave a report about what I had seen. And within about 10 or 15 minutes, you could see the cars starting to come down. You know, all day long, people came to the Coast Guard station to see this huge break that had happened. The water just rushing right through.